Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Minds of Mortgage podcast. I'm Kelly Yale and I am joined today by Anthony Casa, CEO of UMortgage and friend of mine. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I love everything you're doing. I love your energy. You and I've exchanged some great ideas over this last couple of years, and I'm excited to talk about it today.
Yeah, and I've been such a interested party watching you build UMortgage, right? Because I feel like you started it and all of a sudden it was huge. So can you walk me through kind of what made you start UMortgage?
Well, I think for me, this is my second mortgage company that I've been the leader, the primary driver of. I think for me, the vision was when I left my first company. I felt like I built a really good production shop. We were, in our best year, we did close to $2 billion in business, but it was very much, a group of people that, we had 30 to 40 people and they all killed themselves. We all worked our butts off. So when I left there, my goal was when I started another mortgage company is I wanted to learn how to build a real scalable business where, we really had training and development, culture, and all these different things, not just people just working their butts off till they're, burn out. So I spent my years between Garden State Home Loans and UMortgage focusing on building relationships and learning from people that have done that in the past, in their businesses. And I feel like I really got some great mentors during that period of time. So the vision was I want to build the best mortgage company in America. And what does that mean? That means that I don't believe in what's out there. When I think of like the distributor retail model or the broker model, like it's the same thing. It's the local loan originator model, right? And my belief is that every company out there basically lets the inmates run the asylum. Each branch is their own independent business. Same thing with the broker shops. They're all running their own thing. There's no cohesion. There's no focus. There's no goals and business planning or any of that stuff that's cohesive. So my thing was like, we want to build the that. We want to build the company that is fully aligned, fully structured. Nobody's doing their own thing. Like we look at it like Alabama football. It's like, everybody that's here runs the same plays, is accountable, and does what we all agree to and what we're all bought into. I think that's been a big part of our growth, and we're very much on this trajectory of becoming what we hope to ultimately become, which is the best mortgage company in America. Whether that means we're number one or you're doing the most volume or anything, it's really not our priority at this point. Like to me, it's really about being the best.
Yeah. How do you define when you say you want to be the best? What does that mean to you?
To me, there's two things that means. It's number one, we're the company that everybody wants to work for. Number two, we're the company that nobody wants to compete against. So those are the two things. Like when I think of like the best football team in America, when I think of like the New England Patriots, is nobody wanted to play the Patriots during the Belichick, Tom Brady area. Like it was like, hopefully they get eliminated so we don't have to play them in the playoffs. That was the whole goal. But they always won. And they like, no matter how far down they were, they always came back because they were the best. So to me, it's not about, it's about understanding it's like a culture that has a high standard. It's about, to me, it's about, it's the energy, like to me, it's like I sit here every day and it's hard to always be positive, but I hold myself and I hold our team accountable to it. Like, somebody comes to my house, my head of operations comes in. Every time he comes in, he wants to talk about, this is happening or that's happening. I'm like, no. I was like, come back in and let me know when you're ready to have a positive conversation because we're leaders. We get the opportunity to lead our people. So it's a mindset thing. It's a cultural thing. It's not about where we are. It's really about this concept of like, we really can get better. And a lot of people talk this stuff. Like, that's what I've learned is like, outside of like, Matt Ishby and UWM, who I've, developed a pretty good relationship with over my years, outside of him, I haven't seen anybody actually live this life and this culture in the mortgage business. They talk about it. They go on social media. They talk about it. They pretend to be that, but then you see their turnover rates. Then you see their growth rates and you see all those things. You're like, well, you're not really the best if you can't consistently grow. You're not really the best if you're always losing your people. And you're not really the best if every time the rates go up, you have to, downsize and go backwards 50%. So to me, it's like, who's really living it? And I think for us over the last 4 years, it's like, hey, we grew by 100% 3 years in a row during the hardest market cycle in the world. So I feel like we're doing something well.
I mean, and what amazing stats to have, right? These last few years have been really soul crushing for a lot of people, right? And the ability to be positive or just to focus on that positive, right? Just like you said, we have 100 problems a day to solve, right? But if we are looking at the problems and not the solutions, then we will get mired down into that same cycle of just like, oh, sales is hard, operations is hard, deals are so hard right now, rates are so high. And, like you can get into that negative vortex, but why? What's the point of doing that? Because the reality is if you pull yourself down and you're negative about your job, that's going to come across in everything that you do.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the thing is this, is like, I don't look at anything as a problem. I look at everything as an opportunity. So like, to me, I've got a million opportunities to get better. Are they problems? Maybe if that's your perspective, but like realistically, I know I'm going to get to it when my prioritization gets there. So there are opportunities. But at the end of the day, what I see is leaders don't understand how important their tone, their communication, their presence, the way they show up is. And when you allow, hey, when 2021's here and we're booming, you're out there, you're positive, you're on social media, you're talking about this, you're going to the branches, you're going to the LO, everything's a party. And then, here comes 2022, 2023. These leaders, you can't find them, anywhere. They're completely absent. And to me, that's because they're not leaders. They're figureheads that, at the end of the day, either have made a lot of money and they checked out, or, they lack the substance. But to me, at the end of the day, it's like when times are hard, that's when being visible, being accessible, and having a clear direction and vision is the most important. The words you choose are super important. Like, when things are bad, like everybody knows they're bad. You don't need to reiterate it. It's like you you don't have to be fucking Captain Obvious. If you're on a plane that's going down, it's like you're not going to sit there and be like, oh, the plane's going down. It's like, no shit. We all know the plane's going down. You have to have you have to be calming. You have to be poised. You have to get everybody else to think there's a solution here, or get everybody else to take action that's going to help drive the bus in a positive direction. I had to learn that, like, to me, it's like, I didn't wake up one day and I haven't been like this for my whole career. My first company, I wasn't like this at all. It's learning from people that do it the right way, seeing people under adversity and under these obstacles, and seeing how, like, oh, rates are down, we're going to start firing. It's like the companies that do that because they don't have a plan. It's like, to me, it's like, what is your plan to grow regardless of where rates are at? And to me, I think it's focusing on the basics, sales activities. It's focusing on developing new relationships. Like, one of the big metrics we're going to next year about is, like, for our salespeople, it's like wallet share of your relationship business. So like whatever relationships you had prior to the 1st of January, how much wallet share can you grow year over year? And then the next one is, how many new relationships can you source that give you, 1 to 3 loans, or 3 to 6, or whatever those things are. But to me, there has to be a bigger focus on growing new relationships than just living off the existing relationships. And that's a mindset shift. You know this better than anybody. So, it takes a lot of focus. It's taken me, it's put me in a position where I'm less able to focus on things I used to focus on. I used to be super active on social media. I don't have time for it. And not only that, but I realized that the most important people I need to communicate to are the 500 people that work for me. And as long as I'm front and center, and as long as I'm accessible to them and doing what I need to do with them, everything else externally will work itself out. Everybody's going to know what we're doing.
Yeah, you make it really good. You were talking about, as you were talking about sort of CEOs leadership inside mortgage, right? And you and I certainly have seen, it's over the last 12 years, I've been in the industry, seen lots of different kind of things. And what's interesting to me is that you and I are similar in that and I'm going to assume this is true. We are both visionary people who should be in a visionary lane, who spend all of their time in the implementation lane, because we want our vision to come to life, right? And we want people to be inspired by the vision. And yet our correct seat is very likely in the visionary role, which is just like, how do we take this and make it this? But the importance is lost on so many leaders that it truly has to be, you build this incredible foundation, right? And in a world where I see so many leaders who, I'm a CEO, I'm also a coach, I'm an influencer, I'm a this, and it's like, well, what just happened to just running a mortgage company?
Yeah. The problem is That's the lack of self-awareness. Like, to me, you can tell somebody's priorities if you just look at their, like, the way where they spend their time and what they spend their time on. So, and I went through this at one point. Like, I at one point I got distracted while I was running this business, where I literally had to rein myself in, because all of a sudden I started seeing my outcomes weren't matching up with my vision. And it was like, dude, you're not spending your time with where you need to spend your time, because if the outcomes aren't adding up, it's because you're not clear enough in your vision. You're not setting good expectations. You're not providing people with that clarity. Here's the biggest learning I've had, is that in order to create this, bring a big vision of life, something that's gonna, be, everybody knows about it and it's impactful and it's growing and all that stuff, you have to spend so much time developing your leaders, developing your people, living the life. People wear out. This is not an easy business. So it's not like this is a business that literally creates distractions. It creates shiny object syndrome. It creates excuses, and the competition feeds into it. We have one of the most reactive groups of industry leaders I've ever seen. The shiny object over here, let's do this. Shiny object over there, let's do that. Like, they don't focus. They're like, if you really look at the companies that have done something great, it's very few. I mean, you look at UWM, you look at Rocket, you look at Mr. Cooper, you look at Freedom, you look at CCM, like the companies that are best in class, they stay in one lane and they stay super focused on it. And usually their leaders are not very visible. You don't hear about them very much because they're so focused on their business. So, to me, when I think about, where we're at as a company today, if I'm looking at my next phase of the business, I've learned that my product is my people. And, if you asked me 3 years ago, what's if one division that you spend your most time with, or, one area of the business, it's like, it shifted. It used to be, sales and ops. And now it's really focused on our people division. It's like, we gotta recruit the right people. We've got to onboard them really well. We've got to train them. We've got to have clear expectations. We have to have clear expectations on what is not acceptable and what is the role. Like, you got to define both. You have to have high accountability. By the way, getting leaders to hold people accountable, extremely hard. People don't like to be held accountable, and people don't like to hold people accountable. It's uncomfortable. It's not natural. So in order to develop leaders that hold people accountable and understand the why and the importance of it, it takes a lot of you holding them accountable, and you holding them accountable to hold other people accountable. And by doing that, you start to condition people to the way things need to be done, the service mechanisms. Like, people around here will get messages from me about, I went in the bathroom and there was a piece of toilet paper on the ground. Why does that matter? It's like, it's just basic. Like, you left that on the ground. Would you do that at home? You wouldn't do that at home. You're not going to do it here. And it's a small detail, but it's more about understanding that the little things matter. And when you focus on the little things, the big things work itself out. Like, when people realize, like, every detail matters. So if he is acknowledging the little thing, when we really fuck up, what's going to happen? Like that's the way you condition people. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of consistency. And as a leader, it wears you down if you allow yourself to think that it's ever just going to stop. Like, if you think that one day it's just all going to work itself out and you're just going to be able to scoot out the back door and it's all just going to work and it's going to keep running. No. You're the visionary. Okay. It's your vision. You have to keep everybody bought into it. You have to keep everybody rowing the same direction. The minute you disappear, the vision fades, and then that's where everything falls apart. So you're right. The visionary is an important role, but you have to always have some level of focus on the execution and the accountability.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of accountability, you just kind of spoke to that, and it's so fascinating to me because I came in this industry. My entire background was digital marketing and social marketing, and I come into this industry and I can't make heads or tails of it because it doesn't make sense to me. How has a really good salesperson immediately become a branch manager and learn that you can now manage people and train them to what? What are you training them to? The way that you did business? And then this person does really well and becomes a regional manager, and all of a sudden we're C-suite leadership, or the CEO, and I say this lovingly.
Yeah.
The former producer. And so there's this weird life where ex-producers don't want to make current producers mad because they remember how it was. And I'm like, first of all, you haven't produced alone in 7 years. So you really actually don't know what it's like to produce a loan now. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying to someone who's in sales, hey, this is how you can be better. This is how our company wants you to grow. But our expectation of you is that you do it the way we do it, and that we can show you what success looks like, because if you're going to become a branch manager here, if you're going to become C-suite here, that you're literally learning how to manage people and
Yes.
implement strategy and how to make people become more successful. Because the last 10 years, right, of like, maybe we're going to see another boom like that, but when? But when? How's everything going to go the way it did when we were really rocking and rolling? We have to
Yes.
change what we're doing and change the way we think about these companies, or they're not going to survive.
It's like, and that's that's the thing with the mortgage business is it's because the bar is so low, and because the number of companies that have actually do it the right way and they dominate, but there's so few of them, it allows for this low bar to exist. And to me, it's like I've seen in my recruiting, like when I was recruiting and doing the playbook that everybody else was doing, which is like you just basically say whatever you have to say to get people to come to your company. Um, I recruited. I recruited better than anybody. I mean, we grew as many LOs as I would need to have. I got them, and real LOs, not just like people not doing business. But the minute that I changed it from like, hey, you can bring your own ops, you can do your own this, you can run your own playbook, to like, hey, this is our playbook. Okay. If you want to come here, you have to track your activities. If you want to come here, you got to buy into the coaching. If you want to be a leader, these are our expectations. You got to have one-on-ones with your team members and you got to hold them account. And guess what happened in the recruiting? It went like this.
100%.
And to me, it's like I changed my mindset from short term to long term on recruiting. I sat there and said, hey, I'm going to allow the success to attract talent. And the right people are going to be attracted to it. And those are people that are going to come in and they're going to be coming running into our program, not running away from it. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the industry having such a low bar, it's like sometimes I talk to people. I talked to a guy. This is a great story. I talked to a branch manager yesterday from one of the top companies, and he had 8 LOs. 2 years ago, he has 4 today, and he says, why should I? What? I have a $500,000 signing bonus on the table for me and my guys. Why should we come to you? And I said, well, here's the difference. It's like that company wants to pay you 50 bips off last year's production to get you tied up for the next 3 years, because they're betting that 50 bips is going to turn into 10 bips over these next couple of years. Okay. And my reality is this: is you lost 50% of your LOs in the last 2 years. I'm going to bet that you're going to lose another 50% of your LOs in the next 2 years. The difference between what you're doing and what I'm doing is I don't do signing bonuses because I'm betting on what I have, the value I'm actually going to provide here, which is last year we did 1.8 billion. This year we're going to do 3. We did it with 100 less LOs. So what does that tell you? And the person's like, well, it's your LOs are doing more loans. I was like, yeah, our LOs are averaging 75% year over year growth, and we have 250 of them. So you're willing to take 50 bips on last year's production because you're not willing to bet on yourself to grow your business next year. Okay. You're willing to let your people get locked into a 3-year agreement. So that's your retention mechanism. I'm willing to bet on my growth. And if an LO comes here and a branch manager comes here, they're going to grow by 75%. And their LO is going to grow by 75%. And the value prop that branch manager now has that LO is like, oh, after 2-3 years, I've tripled your business. That's real value, but it's not sexy because we're not sitting there telling them, hey, you get to do whatever you want. Well, whatever you want has got you into a worse position than you were a couple of years ago. So it's hard. The industry, unfortunately, has such a low bar, and that's what you have to recruit against. And you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And even with adoption stuff, you and I have talked about technology adoption. And I always laugh at people when they tell me like, oh, I'm going to this company because they have a great CRM. I'm like, ask them how many LOs use it. Like, what does that even mean? Like what the hell? If you don't have a sales process that's aligned with the CRM that it requires adoption, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. That's just the reality. And you and I have had a lot of great conversations about that. But that's why the importance of the program's expectations are so important. And I don't know. I laugh sometimes when I see the people that are on stage at some of these industry events, because I'm like, that's the subject matter expert that you want telling the audience how to build their business? Like that guy, that woman? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. A few years, like maybe 4 years ago now, I was at an event and a wonderful, wonderful human being of a CEO is standing on stage and talking about data. And they're talking about it as if it's this brand new special thing that they just learned. And here I've spent 10 years screaming data and nobody ever was like, data what? What's data going to do? And here he's like, we're in the age of data. And I'm like, brother, I've been doing actionable data for so many years. Like, and this is, like if you're really wanting to talk about this, what you really have to find is not a CEO who might know about it. What you need to do is find somebody who's actually put it into practice so that you can say to people, look, our richest resource is our data, right? And speaking to recruiting, right? One of the things that always bothered me about recruiting is it's so focused on like, you're this great LO and you're so amazing and we'd be so lucky to have you and maybe we're going to give you some money and you're just the best and under our umbrella you can do whatever you want, you can have all the free things you like. If you see a shiny object, we're happy to bring that on board and kill our tech department with whatever it is that you decide you want. And it's like that spinning, right? And maybe when money's great, that's all possible. But if you're recruiting me, like right now, if you're recruiting me, Anthony, Kelly to UMortgage, I wouldn't care about all that stuff. What I would want to know is like, what does success look like for me? And how can I be part of the overall success? And how do I fit in to something I truly believe in? Because if you can get me to buy in without money, then you know that I'm bought in. And you know that I want for the overall good of the company at that point. The more we placate loan officers and tell them like right now, the recruiting cycle is so heavy. And these companies, some companies are a disaster.
Oh, shit show.
And going down,
most of them are shit show.
But they're calling people and being like, oh, you got to come here. Like, we got the best stuff ever. And people will come to me and they'll say, hey, I'm deciding between 4 companies and these are the 4 companies. And I'm like, I mean, sure. But here's what I know about those companies. And I happen to know it firsthand. And I feel terrible when I have to give like real advice on that. But at the same time, loan officers tend to think like, I'm going to go to this new company and it's going to be this new world. But to your story, that guy who you're going to bring on, right? Just the change in moving companies, right? That transitional period, incredibly important is that's where you're going to lose people if you're not doing it correctly.
100, and that's why the signing bonuses are so effective. Is it's not about an effective transition process; it's about locking people in. And you're so right about like that industry kind of approach of just like, say what you want and get them on and actually have no value. Like this is the question I ask branch managers. And again, I use that term very lightly because our industry, like it's kind of a figurehead role. Mm-hmm. But whenever I talk to somebody, I always ask them like, hey, what are the things that you're evaluating with companies? And it's amazing how it's all just BS. It's like, well, I want to make sure we're good ops. I want this, like it's all the basics and fluffy stuff. It's not anything that's actually valuable. So, I always sit there and say, man, like, here's my thing. And this is just being honest, because this is how I operate is like, I don't get up out of bed in the morning because of money. I'm just, I'm at a point, I've been at a point for my whole life. Basically, I've like never been charging after money. It's just, that's what happens when you're successful is you get money. But like what lights me up is I am constantly in some level of a process of either me getting personally better, our leadership getting better, the organization getting better. There's a big challenge that every day that I know we're working towards. To me, I sit there and I ask recruits, I'm like, hey, who's going to help you get better? So once you go to the guy I was talking yesterday was talking about Guild. I was like, so once you go there, who's going to help you become a better leader? Because right now I'm on this call and you tell me your number one priority is the ability to go to a company that you're going to be able to recruit to. I can tell you right now, there's nothing sexy about Guild. So like, just because you go there, you're not going to be able to recruit people there. People are going to come to your branch. You need to be able to be sexy. You need to have a value prop. What's your value prop? Because I'm on this meeting right now. You got low energy. You sound burned out. You're not very passionate about the industry. And the shit you're talking about is not the stuff that you're going to be able to recruit LOs with. So why am I going to come work for you? And he's like, well, that's part of my decision making is like, I want to make sure I can go to a place where I have a leader that can help develop me. I was like, then that needs to be your priority. Recruiting isn't your priority, buddy. you need to be developed because you've been stagnant for 5 years. You've been siloed in a branch and nobody's been actually leaning into you, giving you feedback, holding you accountable. That's why your production's been going down. That's why your business is flat. So like, to me, it's like, those are honest conversations. And like that is one of the reasons why like I've changed my approach to recruiting is like, if you're not running into my arms, you're not going to like anything I have to say. So if you like, when people get on a call and like, hey, I'm talking to a lot of companies, I was like, this is going to be a short call, buddy. I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a really short call. And I always end with the same thing is like, we're going to be a problem for you. And I'm just letting you know that it's a matter of time. And you might not realize it today is like, there's not people that are looking at the market the way I look at it. It's like, I'm looking at markets that I'm going into really to grow market share. You're looking at it like, oh, I'm just going to maintain my relationships and I'm going to stay here and be in maintain mode. That doesn't work once the shark comes along. Like once the shark comes along, you'll see what happens to your relationships the minute somebody's calling them constantly and all over them constantly, doing the things that you used to do with your relationships. I might not have people in your market today. I will, because I'm not looking for the guys that are already there. I'm looking to develop the up and comers, the people that are not in the industry yet, the people that I can actually get to do real sales activities daily and weekly, the people that are going to, be going to open houses, the things that, again, you used to do that you would never do right now. And he's listening to me. He was literally, you see like, holy shit, like that's your vision. And again, you have a lot of execution risks to bring that to life, but where the markets that we're in, we've successfully done it. Like we're on offense.
I love it. So let me ask you this. Say you and I are both incredibly honest people, which usually gets us in more trouble than it does anything, which I don't quite understand. And I mean, and I'm a girl on top of that, so it's even worse. God forbid somebody's confident and honest simultaneously, because that girl's too arrogant to talk to. But in general, I just feel like the approach has to be one of just honesty. It's why I really never would have made a good recruiter anywhere I went. But if we were rethinking, right? So you and I say we're starting a new mortgage company, right? We're gonna call it Kelly Mortgage because you already have one. So if you're thinking about how you would start a new mortgage company, what do you think is the most important thing to do first?
It's a really great question. I would say the most important things to do would be you're gonna need, number one, like again, like I already have a vision, so it's like to me, it's like what I would hire versus if I put myself in your normal person's shoes. But like I would say, number one is having a marketing person that can help you build brand. I think brand is really important. That's all, like the one thing I've always focused on, whether it was, Garden State, AIM, Arrive, UMortgage. It's like you got to build the brand because over time, that's what people recognize and that's what people get attracted to. So I think that's you got to start early. You got to be consistent. You got to have a vision. And if the later you wait for it, the more likely you've done some crappy things or you've really like, I don't know, you've kind of set yourself backwards with bad practices. That's one. Two, I think you really, really need to have somebody that can help you have a vision for bringing people in your organization. If you're coming to your company and your thought process is you're going to be the recruiter, or you're just going to kind of like over time figure out how to recruit and hire and train people, I think you're going to find really quickly you're going to be just like everybody else. To me, the two things that were important for me were like the minute I understood the importance of a recruiter and a trainer, my entire business philosophy changed, because at that point I understood that the goal wasn't to find the person for the job. The goal was to find 50 people that are the right person for the job, and of those 50 to find the one that's exceptional. And that's, again, this is not LO recruiting. This is like, your receptionist. I don't want the first person to interview. I want to find somebody that has this unbelievable energy. The woman that's one of my executive assistants here, she worked at the Four Seasons here in Philadelphia for the last 5 years, and every time I went in there, I mean, she was the level of service, the level of consistency, the accountability she held everybody else to her service levels, the relationship focus, and when I was going to hire an assistant, I was like, I never wanted to take her, but like it was time. I wanted to bring somebody that represented my values to my company. So anybody that dealt with it was dealing with somebody that wasn't just doing the job. It was like, it's an experience now. So to me, it's like, you got to find those amazing people, and they're out there. And again, a lot of companies, because they don't invest in recruiting and training, they settle for whatever they find. So the second piece is training. You got to train. Like, at the end of the day, it's not about training just new people in the industry. It's also understanding that your existing people need to be trained consistently. Like, to me, like, if you look at an organization and the processor does it their own way, every processor does it their own way. They have their own approach, their own emails, their own communication. Like, that's not an experience. That's not anything special. That's not anything memorable. What really, people hire processors based upon, what's easy for the loan officer. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. They don't hire because they're focused on the client experience. They're focused on, how do I make my job easier? So they focus on hiring people to cater to them. And to me, my thought process is like, it's about the client experience. Like, whoever dominates client experience is going to win long term. And that's why Rocket wins. That's why UWM wins. UWM won brokers by dominating their experience. Rocket wins consumers because they dominate that experience. So for me, it's the same exact thing. It's like, I'm focused on the consumer experience, and you have to train people to answer the phone every time. You have to train people what urgency means. You get an email, you respond. Even if you don't have an answer, it's like, hey, I've received your email. I want to acknowledge it. I'm going to get back to you within the next 2 to 3 hours. Other people say, oh, I'll just respond in 2 to 3 hours. It's the same thing. I'm like, no. It's speed to certainty. You're acknowledging that you received the email. In 2 to 3 hours, they're sitting there and anticipate, are they going to get back to me? Is everything okay with my loan? Like the mind wanders. So like, to me, it's like, you have to train and you have to retrain. And certain things you can't measure. Okay. Certain things you have to understand. There's the feel metrics. Okay. The things that, how do you make people feel? Okay. So to me, it's like, when I go to when I know the loan officer knows we did a good job, when they get to the closing table and the consumer is bragging about the processor, or the title company is bragging about the funder. Like, that's what we look at, is we look at like, what something you can't measure, but it makes you feel like we did amazing. And you have to train on those things. That's a big deal. And here's the thing, is there's a difference. It's like, what people mistake is like, what's a leader? Like, when you think about leaders, okay, they're not trainers. They're not hiring managers. So if you're relying on a leader to be part of the recruiting process or the hiring process, you're going to find a lot of bad candidates, because they're too busy doing their job and running their team to be good at hiring and recruiting. And then from a management standpoint, you have to understand, a manager's trying to keep people motivated, doing their job. They're not going to focus on training. And a lot of leaders get into a situation where they're like, well, I'm already, we're just trying to hit our metrics. Like, they don't have time for training. Say, no, you're trying to hit your metrics because you haven't trained them. The better you train them, the better you give them feedback, the better that you lead them, they're going to hit their metrics. You're going to be in preventative mode. That's what training is about, is preventing not hitting your metrics. So like, again, these are all things that, like, I would say training, recruiting. And then I honestly would say as a, my third biggest one would be like, what we have here is we have a coach. So we have somebody that is a dedicated leadership coach. So again, like, I think leaders are the ones that tend to go negative first. And that's kind of been my learning, is like, who's the most positive person in your experience in organizations? It's the team members. You know why? Because team members deal with customers. Okay. And that's fun, because customers light you up, because you're delivering the American dream. You're helping somebody. They thank you. You feel appreciated. Okay. So they're always the happiest people. You know who the most negative people are? The leaders, because the leaders only deal with problems. So to me, I always sit there and I focus with our leaders. I'm like, hey, these aren't problems. They're opportunities. We have to stop thinking in this negative terms. You're looking at everything as, oh, I got to solve this problem. No, you have an opportunity to improve our business, our team member experience. Again, it's just, I say this, and sometimes I'm saying it to myself. Like, that's why I put it out there so much. It's like, I have to remind myself, because it can beat you down when people don't adopt. The easiest thing for me to do is to stop holding people accountable. That's the easiest thing. I would wake up 3 hours later every day. I would leave the office earlier. A lot more people would contact me. Like I remember 2 years ago, if I looked at my phone, if I picked up my phone 2 years ago, I'd have all these text messages from all the people that work at my company, all the LOs, the branch managers, they'd all be reaching out. Do you know why they don't reach out to me anymore? Because they haven't done what I'm holding them accountable to do yet. So like whatever the thing was, like, hey, you're supposed to grow your business. Did you manage your team to do the sales? Like, they're not going to reach out to me until when they do it, they're going to reach out to me.
Right.
But they're not going to sit there and be like, hey, my Jones loan, I haven't. No. No. What are you doing to grow your business? Operations will focus on the Jones loan. And once you create that accountability, it becomes very lonely. And that's the hard part about leadership, is understanding that the greatest value you can add is something that is felt over a long period of time. And usually people don't appreciate it until they look back and be like, man, remember who I was 5 years ago before I had discipline and accountability and values and goals and all. They don't care in the moment. They think you're an asshole in the moment, to be honest with you. But to me, it's like the people that have always worked for me, there's one thing they'll say is I'm better now than I was when I started there. And I have a much greater and more mature perspective about how to execute in the world. And that's, part of my value system.
Yeah, I totally, well, first of all, I can't say enough about leadership development and training, right? Those two things, especially when people are onboarding into your company, right? It's not a question of, did you send them a hat? Did you put them through a little of your, LOS training? It
Yep.
is like, how do you become part of the fabric of this company, right? How do you understand what our expectations are, and and you should have expectations of us. We should show up in the same way that we're asking you to. And in my opinion, if I were going to build a mortgage company today, right?
Yep.
The thing I would actually start with is figuring out who and how we serve people. Who are we serving and how are we serving them? And then I would create the process by which we serve those humans, right? Whether that is your realtor process, because there are 10 different processes that go with your realtor process.
100%.
Whether that's your builder process, whether that's your VA process, whatever it is. But once you've defined how you plan to serve each and every person who's in that sphere, then you build the tech to it.
Yes.
You
Yes.
build the process into the tech. Let's then go hire our operations staff and our general, management staff, and not necessarily ex-producers. Thinking about like, hey, this person is incredibly talented and understands all of these things. This is probably somebody who's a really great trainer, thinking outside the box of the old kind of ideas that we have that, it's just about sales getting more and more elevated over time.
You're so
And
right.
then if you really, really want to know what I would do, that's when I would recruit. And I wouldn't recruit with, welcome to the world, shiny yellow, you may have what you want. I would, at this company, we don't have signing bonuses. At this company, what we guarantee you is in the first 90 days, we're going to make you so happy that you work here. And we're going to make you so much money based on your data. You don't need a signing bonus. We're going to pull your database in. We're going to segment it out. We're going to put you through the processes that we have for all of our loan officers. And you're going to see such a profound difference that if you don't, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a bonus after 90 days, but you got to
bet on yourself.
Right? Absolutely.
I love that. Honestly, and you're so right. And honestly, you really hit the nail on the head with that. Like you said something there that really, it is something that I've had to retrain somebody that works for me on, is like the tech piece. Is like people jump to tech. And I try to explain this to all of our people, is like the reason why Garden State Home Loans it's not a question. If you were to ask Matt Ishby of what is the single most efficient mortgage company that he's ever seen when it comes to number of headcount for loans and efficiency to close loans, it was Garden State Home Loans. We closed $1 billion in business. This is $2 billion in business 7 years ago, when loan amounts were a lot, like performing loan amount was 400 grand.
Right.
So we did that with 30 people. And I try to tell people the way we did it is we conditioned those people to do it the same way, the right way, every time, no exceptions, and they were unbelievably well conditioned. After that, we brought tech in, and we brought tech in to help make it more scalable, more efficient, some automation, the things that they had to work hard to make sure didn't fall through the cracks. We were able to bring better visibility, and we made their jobs easier. But if you lead with tech, what you're missing is the people need to know how to do the job first. You need to have a defined process. If you build tech and your process is changing, You got problems. You got major problems. You're gonna have to rebuild the tech. Most likely you're gonna have to abandon the tech. And I would say one of the points there is this is the one thing I start with in everything. And this is my leaders really, I would say, if you were to say, what's the one thing over the last 12 months that Anthony's been all over us on? It's I've identified a proven 4-step process that applies to everything. It's not a mortgage process. It's a generalized process that I look at the way I wake up in the morning. The 4 steps are intake. Every process starts with an intake process. Okay. Number 2 is validate. Okay. I go to a restaurant, I put in my order, they read it back. Oh, this is what you ordered, the minestrone soup. Okay, great. No carrots. Great. Okay. They read it back, you validate it. Then you deliver. That's the 3rd step. And then the 4th step that everybody misses on. The mortgage industry is famous for missing on this. The most important step is transition. Think about people, why do loan officers not have databases, in line? Why don't they follow up their past customers? Why are right now they realizing that their customers have been refied by somebody else? Because they don't transition from the transaction to nurturing a relationship again. Okay. It's to me, I look at things and say, okay, you have a new relationship. It's contact to referral. Okay. That's a process. And along the way, each step has that sales activities. But if I have a real estate agent, for example, it's I see these people oh, I had a lunch with them, a coffee. I was well, did you met with them 3 times? You didn't get a deal yet? Well, what's your process? When do you transition out of the coffee meetings? And they're what do you mean? I just keep calling them until I get a deal. I was you got to have an onboarding process. Okay. It's you meet them. They said they want to partner with you, but they haven't sent you a deal. Now you've met with them 3 times. They keep saying they want to send you a deal, but they haven't sent you one. You need to onboard them. They don't know how to send you a deal. Okay. Just like you onboard a team member. How do I refer a client to you? Do you want an email template introduction? Do you want a text message template? Here's the template. Oh, what kind of loans do you do? What kind of loans do you not do? If somebody says you do commercial, there's no anticipation. So to me, that's one thing we focus on is you got to nail that transition phase. Okay. And right away, what'll happen is you'll realize really quickly that in order for somebody to get on an onboarding meeting where you're going through all that, they really do want to partner with you. Mm-hmm. If they blow you off, then they were already wasting your time and you can stop working with those people. But everything needs to have a process. And it's just, again, that 4-step process, it applies to mortgages. It applies to this podcast. To me, it's I met with you a month ago about this podcast. And to me, I'm going through my process. So intake, you reach out and say, hey, we want to do a podcast. I'm all right, let's do this. We got to meet first though, because I'm not just getting on a meeting with you and just winging it. I need to know what your vision is for this podcast, because I want to be prepared and I want to know what success is for you so that I come ready, not to talk about what I want, but what is your vision for the success of this podcast? So we had that conversation. So I validated it. And now today we're delivering the production of the podcast and we're going to transition from here and you're going to start recruiting LOs to me and you're going to start referring clients to me because you think we're the best mortgage company in America.
One of the things we miss out on is this, how do people to advocates of our business? We so miss out on this one thing, right? We don't train our realtors how to sell us. We don't show them the ease of which, right? We let them get away with I've got to give 3 names of lenders. And you're is this 1984? What even are you talking about? We don't do that. And what's funny about, the success of having, over 2,000 loan officers in one system with no argument about what that system does is that what we built at Motivator was the automation of best practice constantly. Meaning if this is a listing agent and I can tell from the data that you've never worked with them before, they end up getting this amazing relationship building messaging from you with you not even touching it. Because I know if I automate it, you're going to get deals from that listing agent. But I can't guarantee that you're getting anything from that listing agent if I'm not doing that in the background. Yep. And so much of that process of people was built into those automations because that was what we absolutely gleaned, is that if we as the tech and the marketing are out there creating these relationships and creating these opportunities, you can capitalize on those without the mundane work of building those relationships. And that was such a key of it, which is, and not that people are lazy or don't want to do it. I mean, technically they were doing so much in sales. We lost 500 to 1,000 deals a week that we had for them delivered to them, like an ATM, here you go, here's your deal. But they were doing so many loans that they couldn't even see that. And so I think,
You're 100% right.
yeah. And so I'm a huge automation fan. But listen, I could talk to you until the cows come home. Obviously, we could have a 12-hour podcast where we have a new one. Anthony and Kelly, run the world. We're going to start it up. But I really do appreciate your time, and especially just because you're one of the people that isn't afraid to say the things. It isn't afraid to put your money where your mouth is. That you really walk the walk, and I truly appreciate that about you.
Well, I appreciate it. And honestly, I love what you're doing. I love your approach to, the way you're building your business, the way you build your relationships. And to be honest with you, since we've started talking, the reason why, to me, I only maintain relationships with people where there's reciprocal value. Like at the end of the day, I can't be the source of the energy and the value and there not be anything coming back at me. And it's not about a return like situation. It's more about like, I want to be getting better too. Like I want to learn. And I think, for my relationship with you is like, you clearly understand the fundamentals. You clearly understand the problems. And anybody that works with you or anybody that you're currently working with, like I see their platform developing at a much faster pace than any other platform because you're not listening to what they want to do. You're taking like their vision and translating it into your execution process. And ultimately that's making them more successful because they're actually building something that's, sustainable and going to grow. So, I value you. I love what you're doing. And I like to see, you continue. I like to see our partnership continue to grow as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to this mortgage company we're going to start. So, we're really get in on that. So, all right, friend, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Have a great day, Kelly. Thank you, guys.